Are you remotely apprehensive about unleashing Mrs. Wilson on the world like this?
No, but she is the only Wilson on the panel that I claim. I'm just pointing that out.
Is there anything you do? I mean, do you put the bins out? Do you the trash out? I mean, what do you do anything?
I don't do shit.
The piece of shit that you're married to, yeah, he clearly doesn't respect you.
Oh,
he sits there and makes
lady.
jokes about how he married you. He doesn't
He's
do
not
shit
the
around
piece
the
of
house
shit
because
in
that's
this
why you married
panel.
a wife.
Clementine, do all lives matter?
You do know what? All lives do matter. And
Thank
all
you,
lives-
thank you.
all
And
lives-
that
what's controversial?
bombshell,
all
but
lives
the
are not
one
given the same
terrible thing
respect,
you
though.
found
All
I've ever
lives are not
said
given the
you
same
completely
respect.
agree with. Clementine, do you hate men?
No, of course I don't hate men.
Why in 2020 did you tweet the coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough?
I tweeted that in 2020 as a misguided tweet.
Fast enough.
Apologize to men again. Do it again.
This is honestly one of the most absurd conversations I've ever had in my life.
White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt is rarely out of the spotlight. That's her job, after all, and for what it's worth, she seems to be very good at it. But a behind-the-scenes photograph posted by a colleague for Mother's Day in America has divided opinion, even among a generally appreciative MAGA base. 16 million people saw this candid snap of Leavitt in the White House, seemingly holding a baby son in one arm while, quotes, owning the libs, close quotes, with the other. A lot of those people applauded her as a super mom. Many others criticised her for aping conservative family values while actually promoting a feminist myth about women who can have it all. That might seem a bit harsh, but the MAGA movement she's part of has made big inroads in popular culture by promoting the return of traditional gender roles. Here she is talking about masculinity back in 2023.
A man is someone who stands up for his family, provides for those that he loves, and contributes to his community. A great example, helping an elderly woman with her groceries, helping a neighbor or a friend, putting others before yourself. That's the definition of a man. I'm proud to have so many strong men in my life, 2 older brothers, a great father. We love men, we need men, and as women, Jen, we should not be afraid to say that.
Well, there's undeniably been a huge backlash to the whole era of demoralising all men as miniature Harvey Weinsteins with ambitions that are wickedly patriarchal. Coincidentally, you can read about how that's going on in my upcoming new book, Woke is Dead. Has there ever been a better time for a book called Woke is Dead? But where does the renaissance of masculine men leave the women who thought it was a very good idea? Andrew Wilson was extolling the virtues of a more limited female role in a previous debate on Uncensored when a shocked Emily Austin said this.
Are you
Yeah, I'm
married?
married. How do you make married with many children?
Is your
How
wife
about you?
happy?
You married with children? Oh, she's ecstatic.
No, I'm 23.
she's
I'm
gonna
a
bring
boss
me-
lady girl, which seems to
Yeah.
be driving you crazy.
Yeah.
Working, making
Yeah, well, I'm
money,
just pointing
waiting
out
for the right guy to
the
come
only
along.
thing you have no arguments. You just try to assault me personally.
Well, Andrew Wilson's apparently ecstatic wife, Rachel, got in touch on X and told me she'd like to participate in our next debate. And so she will. She'll be joining us alongside an all-new panel of boss lady girls. Well, joining me now is the host of Crucible, Andrew Wilson, Andrew's wife and author of Occult Feminism, The Secret History of Women's Liberation, Rachel Wilson, Emily Wilson, no relation, from Emily Saves America, and the feminist writer and author of I Don't, The Case Against Marriage, Clementine Ford. So welcome to all of you. Andrew, great to have you back on Uncensored. Are you remotely apprehensive about unleashing Mrs. Wilson on the world like this?
No, but she is the only Wilson on the panel that I claim. I'm just pointing that out.
Everyone seems to be either called Wilson or Emily in this debate, in this two-header. Rachel, welcome to Uncensored. You reached out to me on X and very boldly said, if you want to debate this properly, get me on. You're here. How are you feeling about this?
Well, thank you for having me, Piers, and thank you, Andrew, for unchaining me from the stove just long enough to appear today. I got a day pass from the patriarchy.
Patriarchy is benevolent.
So true. Yeah. So I'm very happy to be here. People love to attack my husband via me. I'm like the favorite way to do that. So I thought, why not come on and talk to people myself?
So look, Rachel, let's cut to the quick. A lot of Andrew's critics, not me, a lot of his critics say that he's an obvious, blatant misogynist. He thinks all women should be, kept at home, working away on the stove, the housework, whatever it may be, and know their place in life. You are actually married to him. You've been subject of mockery inadvertently through the last debate we had about this, for having to endure being his wife. What is it like being married to Andrew Wilson?
Well, it's pretty awesome. I mean, he's hilarious. He's a really smart guy. He's very charming. And most of all, he's a great dad and a great husband. And I share his worldview. So I would agree. In fact, I would say I would probably be the more bitter misogynist out of the two of us. If you really had to like pick one, it would probably be me. So
Really? Why do you say that?
I just think that feminism has absolutely destroyed so much of what I hold dear in life, and it's held me back more than it's helped me. It's one of the reasons I started looking into the history and investigating it for myself. And I think it's just created a world where we now have a two-income economy, and for women like me who do want to prioritize motherhood, it makes it extremely hard. It just makes it financially difficult. I faced tons of social pressure. Had my first daughter at 20, wanted to stay home. Everyone around me, even the so-called Christian conservative women, told me it was a terrible idea. You can't do that. You have to bring the baby to daycare. You're going to put yourself at risk. You know, your husband's going to hurt you. You're going to be abused if you don't have your own money and your own career. And I think it's backwards. I think it's the most inefficient, stupid thing we've ever come up with. And that in the future, people will look back at the feminist experiment as a goofy time in history where we tried this wild experiment that failed miserably, and thank God it's over.
Wow. Okay. Well, Clementine Ford, I'm sure that you agree with every word of that, don't you?
Firstly, I'm very glad that you're happily married. It's great. You know, a lot of women are not happily married and they find it very difficult to leave marriages, particularly because of the financial strain. So good for you. I do think that your historical understanding of feminism is extremely skewed. The idea that somehow we have only created a two-income household because feminism has tried to destroy the world is historically inaccurate, in large part. Well, firstly, you're also talking about feminism from your very, and when I say limited, I'm not trying to insult you, but the limited perspective of feminism in America and the understanding of the economy in America. It's not taking into account the global reality of the fact that women have always worked, women still continue to work. Women, for the most part, produce the majority of the world's underpaid, if drastically underpaid labor. When you talk about a two-income household being somehow instituted by feminism, you're failing to take into account that even in America, the kind of the glamorization of this golden age of marriage in the 1950s to the early 1960s, which the marriage historian Stephanie Coots calls the long decade. This coincided with an increase in women in the workplace. So it's not as if there was this golden age where women where married women, weren't working. For a lot of that, actually, the labor that is required to support the middle class has always been relied on for poor and disenfranchised women, largely in America, Black women.
All right. Look,
for a start.
Let
me just finish.
We all have to speed things up a little bit.
And the economy, the downturn in the economy, the boom that happened after the Second World War was unsustainable. It was a wonderful time between around 1940 to 1970 for white working class men in particular. And then it began to
but I have a question for you.
One of the reasons why women had to go into the workforce was because they had to help support their families.
Okay, I have a question for you, Clementine. It's a very simple question, but I think it'll be an interesting question to ask you. What is a woman?
Piers, I'm not going down the path of debating trans women with you.
I didn't mention trans women. I asked you what a woman is.
Okay, I'll tell you. I know that because this is your tactic. This is what you do. What is a woman? I'll tell you what a woman is.
It shouldn't be controversial.
I'll tell you what a woman is. A woman is someone who has at least at one point in her life felt scared of a man.
Sorry?
So
you guys never want to talk about that.
Wait, hang on.
You guys never want to talk about that.
So any man who's ever felt afraid of another man is a woman?
No.
What are you
talking
talking
about? That's not what I'm saying.
This is exactly why you're wearing that shirt that says repeal. You should put the 19th under it. It's unbelievable. What are you talking about? A woman, anybody who has ever at one point been afraid of a man, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Do you have an actual argument here?
Would you let me finish speaking? Or do you
how long is it going to take for you to finish? How long is it going to take for you to finish?
Yes, do you really just invite people on your show to be interrupted like this?
Well, Clementine, look, with all due respect, we did do a bit of research into what you said about me in the past, so I think I'm entitled to give you...
So you already know what I think about that question, because I've written about you asking that
yes,
question.
you have. In fact, you said, like all of
So
the
why
big...
would you ask it again when you know what my
I'm
answer
just
to
to
that
enlighten
is?
the audience who have no idea what you're talking about,
Okay.
or me. Like all of the bigots, that's me apparently, currently jumping on the transphobic shuttle to Ding Dong Station. Morgan wants you to believe this is about fairness and equality, specifically fairness and equality in women's sports. That was exactly what it was about. And the problem is, Clementine, with all due respect to you, the reality is...
I doubt it. I doubt it's coming with due respect.
I'll treat you with perfect respect, but your inability to just simply state what a woman actually is, particularly given 2 weeks ago in the UK, the Supreme Court made it very clear that a woman is a biological female. That's it. It's a scientific fact. The fact that you can't answer that is part of the problem.
I'd like to know, the thing is that I would like to know why you, in particular, are so obsessed with this definition of what a woman is. Firstly, how does it impact you in any way? Secondly,
I have a 13-year-old daughter.
As a woman,
I have a 13-year-old
I
daughter.
can tell you,
And if my 13-year-old daughter decides she wants to compare... Hang on. You ask me a question. You ask me a question, I'm going to answer you. Well, if you don't want an answer, don't ask me a question. Here's my answer to your question. I have a 13-year-old...
You asked me. You won't let
I have
me
a
answer.
13-year-old daughter. I have 7 nieces, right? And some of them
you're
are
a real
very...
expert then on
So
women,
if I
I
may
guess.
answer your question, some of them are very good at sport, right? The idea that they would one day have their dream of potentially an Olympic place or a Team GB place, whatever it may be, a world championship place, taken from them by a biological male, I think is completely outrageous. And by the way, so does most of the world now, which is why there's been a reversing, screeching U-turn on this particular subject. But I come back to my question to you. Your inability to say what a woman is, and yet here you are lecturing women on how they should behave as women, is completely perverse.
I think that reducing women specifically to your biological deciding of what you think a woman is.
It's called science. It's their chromosomes. You have different chromosomes to me. It's not me saying that. I'm not writing.
I'm sure you're not the first.
I'm not writing the science.
I'm not the first person. I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you about intersex people. So how do you?
I'm not talking about intersex people.
No. This is all wrong anyway. The intersex is not a third sex. It's not a third sex. That's ridiculous. There is no third sex. There's 2 sexes, male, female, categorized scientifically. Intersex is not a third sex. Anybody can look that up in 5 seconds. Total lie. How did you not know that, by the way? How did you not know intersex is not a third sex?
I didn't say that intersex with a third
You did.
Sex. But
yeah,
intersex
that's exactly
people
what the implication
exist,
was.
And intersex people have people
what?
can have a mixture of chromosomes. So if you
are you saying they're a third sex
world,
or aren't you?
If you
are
present
you
to the world as
if they're not a third sex, then you have no argument here. Do you understand that? If what he's saying is
why
this
are
is
you
what is
so
objective.
Obsessed
This
with
is
trans
what,
women?
Yeah,
why
I'll tell you.
So obsessed
I don't need.
Why are you so
I
obsessed
don't
with
need.
defining
I'm going to answer the
trans
question.
women?
I don't need.
For a start.
Yeah.
No, everyone has interrupted me. Let me speak for a moment.
You just asked a question.
Let me speak for a
You
moment.
can't keep asking questions,
for a moment.
Clementine, and then refusing to allow people to answer. If you
so
don't
I'll
want an
answer the
answer,
question.
don't ask a question. The truth
Objective.
about the problem is
Go.
feminists in particular, I've noticed, feminists have latched on over the last few years to this idea that if anybody raised any concerns about the way the trans lobby was trying to make things unequal, unfair, and unsafe for actual women, then they were immediately transphobic. I kept saying, I want trans people to have the exact same rights to fairness, equality, and safety as me or you. However, what was happening was women's rights were being eroded, so that things were not fair, they weren't equal, and they weren't safe. And we saw absolute parodies of this in the Olympics, in the boxing ring, where people who have been banned from the World Championships because they apparently reported positive for male chromosomes were getting in the ring and beating women up in the ring. And so a woman's going to die if this was allowed to carry on. So now people have stopped it. Now sporting bodies around the world have stopped it. But you, Clementine, I say this respectfully, are still flying the flag for this bullshit. And you can't even say what a woman is. And I just find the fact that you want to lecture women like Rachel on how they should be as a woman is completely perverse, given you don't even know or don't want to say what an actual woman is.
I haven't said anything to Rachel. I haven't said anything to Rachel. I've never met Rachel before in my life until today.
Well, you responded to what responded to what she said about the role of a woman.
I wasn't lecturing her. I wasn't lecturing her.
Well, it sounded like you were lecturing to me. Let me bring in Emily. Let me bring in Emily. He's been waiting.
I was actually telling. I was
Let me bring in Emily. He's been waiting
about the
patiently.
historical reality of economics in the US.
Let me bring in Emily.
But you wanted to divert it to talk about trans women because that's clearly.
No, you banged on about trans women. I just said to you, if you don't know what a woman is, we've got a problem.
I would like to get back to that, by the way, because she's wrong.
No, I just...
She's wrong about the economic history. She's the one looking at it through an economic prism that's extremely narrow. She's using feminist standpoint theory to try to tell us what the history of economics is. Yeah. She can't explain to us why, through all of human history and all of Western history.
Let her finish, lady. Let her finish, lady. You talk plenty, lady.
Why through all of Western history, we were able to raise a family, like a janitor could raise a family with 4 children on his income up until 1970. And what happened in 1970? We pushed women into the workforce in huge numbers, and we practically doubled the workforce overnight by pushing mothers and women into the workforce. This happened right alongside the creation of gender studies as an academic discipline. And now we are in a situation where we don't have a family economy. We have an individual income economy, which means most people can't raise a family without both parents working.
Okay, let me bring in Emily, who's been waiting very patiently. Emily, good to see you again. Now, you started a kind of MAGA civil war when you railed against women who want to be a trad wife. You posted a TikTok video, which caused a lot of mayhem. Let's take a look at this.
I'm sorry, I hate to call out my own party, but the young girls on the right promoting this like trad wife bullshit. I just want to make sourdough for my husband. That's great. I'm all for it. I promote traditional values. I understand. I have been working since I was very young. I don't really plan on stopping working. I suggest you find a hobby that makes you money. But you guys, guess what? Guess what, baby girl? That lifestyle working out, a man, a provider, you just get to sit at home, bake bread every day, slim to none. I would say none that's going to work out for you or quite literally anyone you know. You're actually setting yourself up for failure because it could not be easier, if that's what you're going to pursue, to be trapped by a man. Okay? Also, let's bring some other things to the table besides sourdough. Guys want to be mentally stimulated as well as physical, okay? But I'm just like, please, you guys are too young to be promoting this. And also, by the way, it's cringe. You guys are cringe, okay?
Now, Emily, are you standing proudly by that TikTok?
Thank you guys for laughing. That is supposed to be the point of a lot of my videos. I don't take things too seriously. I usually say things like this and don't think anything of it. I do want to point out in the video, I did start it by being like, look, I love stay-at-home moms. I support them. I promote conservative values. I think the issue with the video is a lot of people just took the video and then gave their own meaning. The group I was specifically bashing on was the young girls in their 20s that promote like traditional lifestyles online that we all know in the right-wing community absolutely do not live these lifestyles. And it's just a bit over the top. It's kind of more cosplay than anything. So of course I support moms that do that. I just don't support the girls pretending to do it, I guess, if that kind of makes sense.
I'm not sure it does. Andrew, does it make sense to you?
Well, I mean, she's right in a sense that there's a lot of LARPing that goes on the right with the supposed traditional movement, which she's absolutely right, isn't living the traditional lifestyle. However, it's still a counterintuitive message to put out there that, oh, you're going to be trapped by your husband and his income. It's like, good. Don't you want to be in a relationship with your husband and have access to his income? Like, what's the problem here? That would be the values you're trying to move towards, right? So like, ultimately, it's a contradicting message. I understand why you got a bunch of garbage for it. It is a good idea, I think, to point out the LARP, a good idea to point out how much faux traditionalism is on the right because it's a way for them to peddle sex, and that's exactly what they're doing. You see them in skimpy outfits doing exactly that. Totally fair. But on the other hand, you absolutely should not be putting out a message which ridicules women for wanting to be stay-at-home moms and actually live some type of lifestyle which is conducive to their children and family. That's silly.
Let's play at this stage the clip.
Yeah, I mean, also trapped is just the wrong word to use, but
yeah.
Overall, my message I stand by.
Okay, I want to play, because I think it fits in well here, the Karoline Leavitt clip. This is where she's working with her baby. We'll just show the picture of her working at the White House with a baby in one hand and helping to run the country with the other. Now, when I first saw that picture, I thought, wow, that's a pretty extraordinary, powerful image of a young woman who's very young to be doing the incredibly important job she does. She does it, I think, extraordinarily well. And she's a mother, and she's feeding her son whilst doing this at the same time. Rachel, when you saw that image, it got a lot of blowback, good and bad. You know, some people loved it, some people hated it. What did you think about it?
Well, I actually tweeted about this too, because although I'm a big fan of Karoline as a person, I think she's great, she's smart, she's lovely. I don't understand this compulsion, especially in the Trump administration, but on the right in general, where we're supposed to be conservatives, where we are pushing mothers to work. Trump has been a huge proponent of hiring women, getting women back to work as soon as possible after having the baby. And I think this is a huge mistake because, number one, what are we conserving? If we're not conserving the traditional family and traditional gender roles and motherhood in the middle of a birth rate crisis, what are we conserving as conservatives? Just like lower taxes? I mean, should be a core issue for us on the right to say, no, motherhood is not a part-time gig that you do on the side. You don't, ship your baby off to daycare where they're spending 3 times as much time with a low-wage daycare worker as they are with mom while you go and do your career. There's plenty of life to live after raising kids. I think after you've done that, if you want to venture out and do a few more things, once you have the empty nest, I think that's okay. But pushing mothers to work it's one of the key things that's tearing apart the fabric of society because we're not raising our own children. We're not passing down our values to them. We're sending them to daycare and we're sending them to state-run schools, and that's who they're being raised by.
All right, Clementine, your response to that?
Do you work, Rachel?
No.
You don't make any money from your podcasting?
I make some money, but I do.
You do some form of paid employment.
Yes. First of all, my children are grown up now. I'm 44 years old, so I had my first one at 20. They're grown up. They're moved out. Yeah. But I work still very, very part-time, maybe a couple hours a week at most.
But do you have
my primary responsibility is to my husband.
But you've got 5 children, right? Is that correct? And they're all grown up and all moved out, or you've still got some young children?
The youngest one. The youngest
we
ones
still have
are
a couple
teenagers.
at home. And by the way, just making an argument from hypocrisy.
So can I just ask you? Do you find, even with the small amount of part-time work that you do, which you do get paid for, do you find satisfaction from that? Do you get satisfaction from that work?
It's not the money, because Andrew makes far more than I make. I make a very, very tiny amount of money off of, my book, and a couple of appearances here and there might sell a few books. It's practically nothing. If I was doing it for the money, it'd be a waste of even the couple of hours. But what I would say to that is, we're not against women doing other things. So if you look at the Bible and the Proverbs 31 woman, she does a lot of things. She's out buying land. She's making decisions. She's doing all kinds of things. The difference is that she's doing them under the purview of the guidance and leadership of her husband and for her family, not for a corporation, not for her own glory, not for her own ambition.
A lot of that depends on whether or not you have faith in the Bible, which obviously not everyone does. But the reason I asked you those questions wasn't because I was trying to set you up or anything like that. It doesn't surprise me that you would get some satisfaction. To me, the point of the question wasn't about the money. It's about the work. It's about the passion that you put into it. And the reason I asked was because a multi-year study done by Adrienne Freck and Sarah Damaske, found that the mental health of women who worked full-time after the birth of their first child was significantly higher than those who didn't have paid work at all. So I think that taking into account the fact that for a lot of women, and this is also what Betty Friedan found when she wrote The Feminine Mystique, and Stephanie Coontz backed this up as well in her book, The Way We Never Were, which is a history of the modern American family.
But are you married, Clementine? I've no idea about your situation, but are you married? Do you have kids? What's your deal?
I've got a kid. I'm not married.
Okay, but you have a...
I'm a single mother.
Okay.
And I have a very excellent relationship with my son's father. We co-parent together very well, but we're not married. We don't live together. I certainly have found since having a child. I mean, I've always worked anyway, but I've been working since I was 13 years old. But I've always found that work for me is very satisfying. And this, what I'm saying is that these are the findings of multiple historians, anthropologists, scientists, that
No, these are the findings of diehard feminists who are only investigating this from a feminist point of view. They're already sold on the ideology, and what they do is they cherry pick data.
Is a world-renowned historian. She's not specifically a feminist. She's a world-renowned historian, and these were her findings as well. So you cannot deny the reality. If when you look at the facts of it, you cannot deny the reality.
Anything else? We're not saying women can never leave the house. We're not saying you can't have other things in your life that you find fulfilling.
You're suggesting that the primary role for a woman, and that, you know, in your faith, I'm not going to discredit that, but your faith in God says that this is what you believe God says that you should be doing, but that the primary role for a woman is that she should be staying at home, that she should be devoted to her husband, she should be devoted to her children. The facts do not back that up. The facts of familial satisfaction don't back that up.
Well, hang on. Okay, let me jump in. Hang on.
Yes, they do.
Hang on. Sorry, Clementine. I think you've chosen the wrong moment to say that. You've clearly got a woman here on the panel where the facts completely back that up. She's had a lot of kids. She's very happily married.
She loves that there would be exceptions to the rule, but statistically speaking,
you've just literally got one sitting there in front of you.
That's completely untrue, though. For her to say that this one study, that this one survey is going to tell us something. First of all, we have two.
It was a multi-year study.
Ma'am,
let me ask you, Clementine. Let me ask Clementine. When you were you married or not? I can't remember what you said. Were you married?
No, I've never been married.
Okay, but when you were with your partner before you broke up, who did the household chores and stuff like that? I mean, how did you delineate that as a feminist?
It was a struggle, because even in lots of supposedly egalitarian households, you know, again, the data backs up that even women who make more money than their partners or their spouses tend to do more unpaid domestic labor. This is the
who did most of
bind that women
who did most of the domestic chores
in my house?
Yeah,
me.
You did.
Me.
Okay, and Rachel, who does most of them in yours?
That's the reality for.
Well, hang on.
For most
Rachel,
women,
who does the domestic stuff in your house, Rachel?
I do absolutely all of it, and the thing I want to say to
Clementine, so you're very similar. I mean, it seems to me you're both.
I care far less about women's fulfillment in careers than I care about children and how they're being raised, and I want her to justify to me why we should be paying low-wage daycare workers to raise our children rather than doing it ourselves. How does it make sense to take your duty of motherhood and simply put it on a different random woman? How does that system make sense? Why should we tell women to do that?
If you would like to stay at home and raise your children,
you're not answering
totally
fine.
You're not answering the question.
My question is, how is it good for children
it's a question of
for them
choice.
to be raised by
it's a question of choice.
No, it's not
it's
a
actually
question of
not
choice.
worse.
No.
It's not worse
Why
for
is it
children
better outcomes?
to be raised by working
better?
mothers. That's
Why
also
the
the facts back that up. There is no study that suggests that women who work
Listen, lady,
raise
there are
children
no
who are
facts
less happy.
on
That is
there
not
are
true.
No facts on planet Earth that back up that single mother households have better outcomes. That's one. Two, that outsourcing your hang on. Let me finish, lady. If you outsource the raising of your children, you're already making yourself a single mother. Just so you know. Here's what's going on. Just so that you understand.
Are you a single father because your wife raises your children for you?
Lady.
Excuse me, don't call me lady.
Can you let me finish? Can anybody finish a point? Can anybody finish a point? Or
I don't know.
only
Do you have a point?
Are only you allowed to? I'm trying to make one. So
you don't seem to be making a point, Andrew.
If you outsource your children's raising to strangers, answer Rachel's question and tell her how that makes more sense than having the child raised by their own biological mother. Actually answer.
Well, in my case, it makes more sense because I need to make money to pay my bills to raise my child.
But
in many other families, it makes.
What if you depended on your husband's income?
Do you see the problem of how we ended up here?
Now it's my turn to finish. But actually, again, if you knew what you were talking about, if you actually read anything about the data on these things rather than just reaching into your gut for a feeling that feels true to you.
Let's go over the data. Show me the data that shows that if you outsource childcare, it's
there was a father in the household.
Let me bring Emily in, because Emily's been, again, Emily's been, hang on.
There is no statistical data to support the fact that children raised by mothers who work are less happy than children raised by mothers who stay at home.
Yes, there is. There's tons of data.
I would never try and stop Rachel.
There's so much overwhelming data.
Children. That's her choice. That's her choice to do that.
There is so much overwhelming data.
Because that's her choice.
All right, let me bring Emily in. Let me bring Emily in.
Piers knows that.
Emily was trying to say something.
You don't want your daughters and your nieces being forced to stay at home to raise families.
I don't want my kids to be forced to do anything. No, Emily, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I'm not going to argue data with either of you guys. I'm sure you know more than me, but I can say that my father is my hero and the most important person in my life. And if I didn't have him and he wasn't in the household, I don't know where I would be today. And my girlfriends who were raised without fathers in the household, I do see them struggle in different ways when it comes to dating and all these different things. And it's funny because it's like they do make a point. Like if there was a father in the household supporting you, I think a lot of these issues wouldn't be what they are. So I think there's points to both of these things.
Okay, let me ask Andrew. Andrew.
But supporting in what way?
Is your name Andrew? Anyway, go ahead, Piers.
Yeah, well, Andrew, I was going to ask Andrew, when Rachel said that she does all domestic chores, is there anything you do? I mean, do you put the bins out? Do you the trash out? I mean, what do you do anything?
I don't do shit. That's what I got a wife for.
Maybe a little yard work.
But not only that.
If something breaks, there's yard work. That's about it.
Yeah, cars need repair, something like that. But I'm not going to do household chores. That's what I got married for. I don't want to do household chores. Not only that, on top of that, let's just point a couple things out. She's absolutely wrong. Here's what the stats actually say, that if a child is raised in a two-parent household, they're going to have way better outcomes. And if they have a present mother who's more present with them, they're going to have way better outcomes. Every single data point backs this up. The outsourcing of children to public school, especially for 8 hours a day, is absurd. Stop. Let me finish the point. Let me finish the point, and then you can respond. Let me finish the point.
I've got to say, Clementine, as someone who doesn't like being interrupted, you interrupt a lot.
Why is it that you won't let me finish the point?
I got a text message from your producer, Piers, telling me to interrupt if I disagreed with anyone.
Yeah.
So take it up with them.
No, but I think that what's changed since that text message is you've made a point of objecting to being interrupted. So I don't think you can do that.
And yet I keep being interrupted, Piers, so that's just the state of play right now.
Why don't you practice what you preach and don't interrupt Andrew when he's trying to finish his point?
Yeah, so look, I've just finished the point.
Would he make a point? He hasn't made one yet.
Yeah, I just did. I made multiple points. All the data points are against you on this.
He's made the point that he doesn't respect his wife.
You're still not,
because he doesn't,
lady,
he married a wife
stop
because
talking.
He didn't want to do anything for himself.
You can't stop talking, lady. This is why it should say the 19th under that shirt. You cannot even be quiet long enough to hear a counterpoint. Here's the counterpoints. The data you're citing, you don't have any when it comes to outcomes for children, when it comes to outsourcing their raising.
Incorrect.
None.
Incorrect.
No. Show me any that shows that you sending your kids outsourcing.
Which data are you citing?
Would you stop so that I can finish the question?
No, tell me.
I'm trying to at least finish the question.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Here's the thing. One more time. All data points to the fact that if you outsource the raising of your children, especially when they're young, you can't just stand there
and say all data. You actually have to cite it.
Cite any data that shows.
Say that.
Cite any data ever that shows that you outsourcing the care of your child is good for the child. Any. Yeah, that's right.
Kuntz.
Nothing. You got Stephanie Kuntz doesn't say that. You're lying through your teeth.
Do you even know who Stephanie Kuntz is?
Yes, you mean the feminist
writer?
writer?
Who Stephanie Kuntz is.
The feminist writer, Stephanie Kuntz?
You clearly don't even know what you're talking about.
I don't.
I can tell you.
You're not even interested. You're not even interested enough in the topic.
I'm sorry.
You're not even interested enough to respect the topic
who's Stephanie
enough.
Kuntz? Let's make sure we got it right. Who's Stephanie Kuntz?
Stephanie Kuntz is an historian. A world-renowned historian into marriage and the structure of the American family.
And isn't a feminist, right? Isn't a feminist? I just want to make sure we're clear.
I have no idea if she's a feminist or not. I know that she's an historian.
Well, then why would you try to make a refutation about what I'm saying? Clearly you don't know enough about the topic, right? It's silly.
I'm only
allowed to. I'm only allowed to
data for
reference
her
feminists.
if she wants it.
I'm not allowed to reference historians. Is that We're only so
If
I'm
you
only
have
allowed
a
to reference
historian who's
feminists.
also
You're
a feminist,
clearly only allowed to reference
if you have a historian who's
podcasters.
also a feminist, they're biased, right? That's
Let
going to be
me
a
ask you,
biased
Clementine.
lens.
Clementine, let me
What
ask
are
you.
you why are you
Clementine,
so obsessed with whether or not she's a feminist or
Clementine,
not?
let me ask you a
She's a
question.
Because it would
historian.
promote bias.
Because it would
show
be
bias.
biased.
Let me try and ask a question here. Clementine, do you hate men?
No, of course I don't hate men. What
mean,
an absurd, reductive question.
Well, why did you
hope
tweet?
they hate
think
you.
that
Well,
was
hang
an
on, 'cause I'm
interesting
about to
line
follow
of
up.
They
questioning,
hate you.
Piers?
Why
I hope
why
they
in
hate you.
2020 did you tweet the coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough?
I tweeted that in 2020 as a misguided tweet, but it was actually much of a part of a longer
Misguided tweet.
thread.
Coronavirus
And
isn't killing men
and I
fast
apologize
enough.
for
And
it,
you say you
Piers.
don't hate
I
men.
apologize for it, Piers.
You
I
thought a
apologize
deadly
for it at the
pandemic
time.
virus wasn't killing men fast enough.
Apologize to men again. Do it again. You haven't apologized to me for saying that you want me to die from the coronavirus.
Well,
Now
I would
say
have
you're
to
sorry.
consider you a man to
Say
apologize you for that,
you're
Andrew.
sorry. Say you don't even know what a woman is. How
Why
you
would
gonna tell
I
me what a man is?
apologize
You know what
to
else?
you? I don't
Apologize.
consider you a man.
Andrew,
Say-
I would
say
like
you're
for her
sorry.
to apologize to me because I do not appreciate her saying that my own husband does not respect me. Of course he respects me. He respects me as a mother and as a wife. He treats me like gold. Who the hell are you to tell me if he respects me or not?
You wouldn't have to get paid for this if you had a husband.
I didn't say that he. Where did I even
You did.
mention?
You said he clearly doesn't
You
respect
did
his
say
wife.
that. I heard you say it.
You mean the piece of shit that you're married to? Yeah, he clearly
Oh,
doesn't
there we
respect
go.
you.
Oh,
He
there
sits
we
there
go.
and makes
Hey, lady.
jokes about how
Hey,
he married
lady.
you. He doesn't
He's
do
not
shit
the
around
piece
the
of
house
shit
because
in
that's
this
why you married a
panel.
wife.
That would be you,
That's
man.
why you got a
Right.
You're
wife.
the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, let's get back to the topic here. You're the one who is
That would be
insisting
nice.
that there's no data
the
proving
list
that
of topics that we would
shut
send.
up.
I would
Shut your mouth.
genuinely. Okay,
Nobody
let
wants
me
to
hang
hear
on.
that.
Time out. I would genuinely like to know. You said it was misguided to say the coronavirus wasn't killing men fast enough. Why
Yeah, it was
would
a
you?
terrible thing to say.
So why
it was
did
a terrible
you?
thing to say.
No, I
Piers.
understand.
I
it's
already said that the time.
Don't
it was
worry.
a
Let me
terrible thing
finish
to
my
say.
question. I do understand it's a terrible
Okay.
thing to say. My question, my bemusement. Why would you say that?
Because I was really frustrated with the articles that I was reading about how the pandemic was it was derailing women's workplace. It was derailing women's economic trajectories. And there was a specific article that I had read about a woman who had founded her own company. She was the CEO of it. Her husband had taken a sabbatical prior to the pandemic. And within 2 days of childcare closing down, he said, I can't take care of the 4-year-old. And she quit her job to go home and look after the kid.
What's
I
that
was
got to do with you
frustrated. I
wanting
was
more men
worried.
to be killed?
So that's one
Piers,
person.
if you're going to ask me
Who
the question,
cares?
then
The
let me
pandemic
finish
No,
it.
you know what,
Let me
Clementine?
answer
When
you,
you know
please.
what, Clementine? When you tweet, literally,
So I wrote a tweet
coronavirus
thread.
isn't killing
I wrote-
men fast enough. I think I'm entitled to push you a little bit more than it was a bit misguided. You're literally calling for the mass culling of men while simultaneously pretending
oh my God.
you don't hate
Piers,
men.
Come on, you know that. Don't be disingenuous. You know that that's not what I was calling for. You
Oh, did
know
he
that it was
misinterpret
a
the
literally
tweet?
said
Kill all men?
coronavirus
Did he
isn't
misinterpret it?
killing
You
men
know that
fast
it was
enough.
a glib tweet, and you know that I also apologized for it shortly after that. You know that I was sincere in my apology.
You didn't apologize
so
to
why you're
me.
dragging it out 5 years
Can
later?
you
Why would you
apologise to
apologize?
Andrew, please?
Will you
To sum
apologize
up
to me for
prove
saying you wanted me to
that
die?
I would not apologize to you if I did something to you, let
There
alone
we
for
go.
doing nothing to you.
Even
I
if
don't
you did
consider
something to me,
I
you
don't
wouldn't
consider you
apologize.
Was that the
a
only
person
time,
This
who
is the
Clementine?
kind of
convinced
Clement,
unhinged
hang on,
person
hang on,
who
hang on,
wants all
hang
the
on, hang on.
children
I've
in
got a follow
daycare,
up.
by the way.
I have a follow up. Clementine, was that the only time you've tweeted that you want all men to be killed?
Piers, why don't you just say what you want to say?
No, I'm just asking you a
Well,
question. Have you
was it?
tweeted
No,
previously?
I have tweeted prior to that.
Kill all men.
as
Yeah.
a joke.
As
Yes,
a joke, right?
I have.
As a joke.
So
Very
you
funny.
quite
Very
regularly
funny
think
joke.
it's funny to say that men should be
No,
killed.
I don't quite regularly. There's two examples that you can think of.
Yeah, you don't hate
One
men,
of
but you
which
did
was
tweet
5
kill
years
all
ago,
men,
and
and
one
then
of
you
which was
tweeted
at
the
least 10
coronavirus
years
isn't
ago.
killing men fast enough. I put it to you.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. I've also
I put it to
I've
you.
also
You probably do
I've
hate
also
men
tweeted
if
that
you
men
want us
should
all
be fired
dead.
into the sun.
Huh?
I've also said that men should be fired into the sun. Tell me, at what point do these very clearly glib, and yes, I have apologized for them, very clearly glib tweets from a time as well where Twitter was such a toxic, I don't tweet anymore, it's a bad place for
Right,
everybody. At what point do those things be accepted as glib, misguided, regrettable, deeply apologetic for them now.
Yeah.
Remarks that you would never say again.
You don't sound
And
very
yet,
apologetic.
I think you should just admit that you don't like men. I think it's the problem comes when you keep
I don't
denying.
like you very much, Piers.
I don't care if you like me or not. You spray gun me in public. I couldn't give a damn.
Why do I have to sit here and admit to you that I don't like men? What are you hoping
I just
to
asked you
gain
if you
out
do
of
or
this?
not. You said you don't hate men.
I said that I did.
You spend all your
I said that I
time
did,
wanting
and
us
you
to be
don't believe
dead.
me.
Hang on,
well,
Piers, she
listen,
loves
don't
men.
wish all
You just
people
got to
back.
shoot him into the
All
sun.
men.
That's all.
Put in the stocks
Shoot him
in
in
the
the
You
sun.
don't like
square
me. You think
for
Andrew's
this
a piece of
behavior.
shit.
I
So
don't
that's
like
The
every
fact that
single
she's
man
even allowed
involved
to
in this
talk this way
debate. You
publicly
hate.
is absurd.
Every man in this
You're not
debate,
happy
Clementine,
and
you've said
successful in
you hate.
relationships with men. You
every
shouldn't be
single
giving
man
advice
involved in
on
this
it.
debate.
Emily, what was that?
I hate
I'm
every man in
saying
this
if you
debate.
live a
That's
life
true.
where you've been unsuccessful in relationships, whether it's friendship, love, marriage, whatever it is, I think you're probably the last person in the position to be giving advice what women should do with men. I mean, I don't feel any animosity
How do you
towards
know
men,
that
even
I've
when it
been
comes to him saying,
unsuccessful in friendships and relationships? That's a
well, are you
very
a single
odd.
mom?
That's a very odd. Well, being a single mother doesn't mean that I'm unsuccessful in relationships. I already said before that I have a very beautiful co-parenting relationship with my son's father. He lives in the same apartment building as us. We're deeply close
I mean,
friends.
that's great,
so
but it didn't work
I
out,
don't
but you
understand
seem
why
bitter
you think
towards
that
men.
is. I'm not bitter towards men at all. I'm annoyed at the expectation that some men on this panel have, that women should do everything for them. I'm certainly angry at the fact that
Wait a
in
second.
the UK,
Do you think
a woman,
Andrew does everything?
I mean, I do everything I can for my boyfriend. I'm not bitter and
angry that
resentful.
in the UK, a woman is killed every 3 days by a man. I'm angry that in America, 3 women are killed every day
Well, I don't-
by a man.
How many
In
men are
Australia,
That's also
killed
an
every day by
immigration
men?
issue. That's kind of a different
by a
How
man.
many men
I'm
are
angry
killed
that
every day by
globally,
men?
1 woman is killed every 10 minutes by an
How many men are
and how many
killed globally
babies
every
do you
day?
women
things
kill?
that I'm angry about. And I'm angry
How many
about the
babies
fact
do you
that-
guys
This is-
kill?
Piers,
How
this
many
is what
babies?
they
1 in
do.
3 girls over the age of 15 will experience sexual violence in her lifetime.
No,
I'm very
that's
angry
another
about
fake
that.
statistic,
I'm
and I would
angry
love
about
to
rape
tear
and
this
sexual
apart.
assault. I'm angry about the fact that the most dangerous person to a woman is a man that she knows. I'm
That's a
angry about all
lie.
of these things, yes, but that doesn't mean that I hate men. That doesn't mean that I don't
She's
see
You just
the
wanna
she is
shoot him into the
lying,
sun.
and I
men's
have the
great-
data to prove
for,
it.
for men's greatness with women and with
You want
children.
to shoot men into the sun,
There's
you want them
all
killed
things
by
that are so-
coronavirus, and you want all of us dead, and you hate both the men on the panel. Other than that, you love men. We
You
get
love
it.
them. You love them. They're great.
Well,
Even though they're
Can
out
I
there
re-
being a
can
bunch
I
of evil
refute some of the
rapists.
baloney
is,
she
which
just
is that I
spewed?
hate
Well,
the men on this
my
panel.
thing is, like, can't you
And-
admit that you at least like men enough that they gave you a beautiful child you're super grateful of? I mean, that's a positive.
This is honestly one of the most absurd conversations I've ever had in my life. I've just
I
sat
kind of
here
agree.
and explained that I
kind of
don't
agree.
hate men.
Yeah.
I've just sat here and explained that I have a wonderful relationship with my son's father. I've just sat here and said, you know, that I've apologized for these things that I've said in the past. We've all said terrible things. Piers, you've said terrible things on Twitter. We've all
Well,
said terrible
name
things
one.
and apologized for them
Name
afterwards.
one. Hang on. What have I said? What have I said? Name one.
Oh, Piers, do you want me to look them up right
Yes,
now?
please.
Okay, let me
Yeah,
just
what-
give me a second.
Tell
to
me
go
a
to-
terrible
to
thing
go
I
to,
said on Twitter.
Piers Morgan.
While she's looking,
tweets.
can I refute her fake statistics that she just gave?
A
Because I
history
hear
of Piers
feminists
Morgan's
repeat this all
terrible
the time.
opinions.
Well,
There
go
we
on.
go. I'll look at that.
Give me a terrible opinion.
Rachel, I thought you were talking while I'm just scrolling through the
yeah.
endless
No,
terrible-
Well, we can
no,
all
you got
wait,
the floor. I
Clementine.
wanna
The
hear it.
clock is ticking, though. I mean,
I
find
wanna
one
hear
terrible
it.
thing that I've tweeted.
I think that all lives matter was pretty bad.
You think all lives matter? It's a bit better than men
I
should
think
be
that all
dying
lives
faster,
matter-
isn't
all
it?
lives matter.
Let's
All
compare
lives
all
matter
lives
as a
matter
rejection
against
of Black
more
Lives
men
Matter.
should die
All
faster.
lives matter. All lives matter as a rejection of Black Lives Matter.
I didn't
It's-
reject Black
it's
Lives
pretty-
Matter. I didn't reject
it's
Black
pretty-
Lives Matter. I
it's
didn't
pretty
reject
ignorant
it.
to the-
I didn't
It's
reject Black
pretty
Lives
ignorant to
Matter. I didn't reject
the
Black Lives
reason
Matter.
for Black
Don't
Lives-
lie.
No, but you did.
Don't,
you
no, I
did tweet
didn't.
all lives
No, I
matter in
didn't.
response
You see,
to
this is
it.
the trouble. You
I'm
say that
seeing
I've
it
said
right
terrible
here.
things. When you try and find them, you don't have any.
I'm looking at it right here, Piers.
Well, go
All
on.
lives matter.
He didn't say white lives matter. He said all lives matter, which is true. And any decent
Do you
human
not think
will
all
agree with
lives
that.
matter,
Panel
Clementine?
is absolutely ridiculous.
Clementine, do all lives matter?
I think that all lives
Matter?
deserve respect.
Do they
but
matter?
I think that in the context,
Do all lives matter, Clementine?
Do you know what? All lives do matter. And
Thank
all
you,
lives-
thank you.
all
And
lives-
that
what's controversial?
bombshell,
All
that
lives
the
are not
one
given the same
terrible thing
respect,
you
though.
found
All
I've ever
lives are not
said,
given the
you
same
completely
respect.
agree with. So
All
on
lives
that,
are not given the same
on that,
respect,
on that
Piers.
delightful note, where you agree with the one terrible thing that I've ever apparently said, we will leave this compelling debate. Thank you all very much
I
indeed.
will agree.
I've got to say,
I will
Rachel,
agree that you derailed
I think, Rachel,
a
it's lovely to see
conversation
a
about
very
Black Lives
happily
Matter to
married
say that all
couple
lives
who
matter. That's what
genuinely
I will
like
agree
each other.
about.
So thank you for coming on Uncensored. And in
you.
your
Now
case,
make me some
Clementine,
breakfast,
I
woman.
hope you find a man like Andrew to take care of you. Thank you all very much. Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. The only boss around here is me. If you enjoy our show, we ask for only one simple thing. Hit subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in return, we will continue our mission to inform, irritate and entertain. And we'll do it all for free. Independent, uncensored media has never been more critical, and we couldn't do it without you.